Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local
Good morning and welcome to the general meeting of Tuesday the 1st of November 2022. We'll call for apologies, and we do have an apology from Mayor Matt Burnett, who is attending on behalf of Council at the National Roads and Transport Congress down in Tasmania. Can I get a mover that we accept Matt's apology? Move Councillor Branthwaite, seconded Councillor O'Grady. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. We move now to messages of condolence. Are there any messages of condolence, councillors? No. We'll move on now to the prior notification of conflicts of interest, and we do have one conflict for Councillor Trevor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor O'Grady, for lending me your glasses. I, Councillor Chris Trevor, advise that I have a declarable conflict of interest in agenda item G/4.5 lease renewal Boyne Tanham Bowls Club, as my legal firm Chris Trevor and Associates are the honorary solicitors for the Boyne Tanham Bowls Club. As a result of my conflict of interest, I will leave the meeting room while the matter is considered and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. We don't have any other conflicts? No? All right then, we'll move on. We won't have a mayoral statement of current issues given the Mayor is not present today. So we'll move on to item number G/2, confirmation of minutes. Can I get a mover, please? Move Councillor Hanson.
Move, Chair.
Seconding Councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. And now we move on to a deputation. We have a deputation from the Department of Education, Early Childhood Education and Care from Linda and Nadia. Welcome. And I'll hand it over to you guys. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today, and welcome to everybody online. Thank you for inviting us to come and talk to you about the AEDC data for the Gladstone local government area. As you know, the first 1,000 days is one of the most crucial times in a child's development, and I understand that the Gladstone Regional Council has been very proactive in this space, so I congratulate you on that. I've spoken to many councils across region, and certainly there are a few that stand out for us, and Gladstone is one of those, so congratulations. So we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're meeting today and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So we're going to run through this very quickly, and if you'd like Linda to come back or myself to come back and to go through some of this data with you at another stage, then please give a holler. But the Australian Early Developmental Census is a nationwide collection. It is the only country in the world that collects on a nationwide level. So when a child is in prep, in their second term of their prep year, they will, or the prep teacher will go through a census which is 100 questions, and that looks at their developmental areas in prep. So it's an indicator of what has happened in your community before a child enters prep. So we know the AEDC can be a lag and a lead indicator. Lag meaning that it is something that's gone on before a child enters prep, but then it can tell us of some issues happening in the community as they're getting older. So the AEDC data, as you can see on screen, it's really just one piece of the puzzle in terms of childhood developmental data and population data, and the AEDC there sits pretty much in the middle, but we know the AEDC does correlate with NAPLAN, and it also correlates, and there's lots of evidence around this with employment and adult health records as well. So on this screen, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to point out to you the difference in brain weights from a newborn to a 3-year-old and how much growth happens in that stage. And then look at the adolescent brain growth. There really isn't that much of a difference between a 3-year-old and an adolescent brain, which really proves that the best investment of our time and resources is in that first 1,000 to 2,000 days. So the AEDC data is just one part of the data set that the Department of Education, but other departments and non-government agencies is looking at to see how our communities are faring. So the early years plan is the Queensland Government's agenda, I suppose, our future state agenda for cross-government collaboration to improve the outcomes of children in our populations. So you can see there that there's 3 priorities for the government: increasing the number of babies born healthier, increasing childhood immunisation rates, and improving wellbeing prior to school. So Linda and I look at the AEDC data, but we also work with child maternal health nurses and child maternal health nurses to talk about immunisation and to talk about childhood education and developmental screeners and resources as well. So you can see that there's that really strong collaboration between Queensland Health and Department of Education. Thanks, Linda. So in the AEDC data, we're looking at the 5 developmental domains. These domains match really closely to child health developmental domains and also the NDIS child developmental domains as well. So physical health and wellbeing, social competence, emotional maturity, language and cognitive skills, and communication skills and general knowledge. And Linda will discuss with you in a minute which areas are of the most concern for your local government area. I love this slide because we can really see the little girl there with the beautiful red hair has a clear path to everything in life. There's no barriers for her. She just can sprint to the end of the line without any problems. But as you go further down that image, there are lots of barriers for that little fellow on the end. Now, the adversities and inequities, we are living in a community, rural and remote communities are one of those communities where we do see lots of barriers. And looking at our different groups of our population, we're also wanting to know how we can better support them so everybody is included and have access to everything that's available in our communities: health, kindergarten, daycare, playgroups. So it's a very big topic for our communities to think about and invest time in doing so. Okay, over to you, Linda.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am going to delve into the local government area data with you for the Australian Development Census. So you will see that the data does include a lot of demographic information, such as the number of kids, the mean age, their gender, Indigenous status, language background. It also includes things like your transition to school summary indicators, and those include how well are children adjusting to school, whether or not parents are engaging actively with their children's schooling, and whether or not they're being read to at home. And we will also see how the community data has changed over time. So the first AEDC data collection took place in 2009. So, Gladstone local government area. You can see there that there were a total of 951 children that the data was collected on in the 2021 census. So that was the latest census. The next one, they occur every 3 years. Of those 951 children, 716 or 87.1% attended kindergarten. So just as a point of reference, for the Department of Education, our target is 95% of children attending kindergarten before school. And you'll also see there that the average age of children that the data was collected on was 5 years and 5 months. So we can have a quick look here at how our Gladstone local government area compares to the state of Queensland. We can see that the gender split is similar. We have slightly more boys. Gladstone does have more First Nations people with 14% compared to Queensland at 9.9%. The percentage of children without a diagnosed disability that require further assessment is 22.1% in Gladstone compared to 18% for Queensland. We have a lower percentage of parents that are actively engaging in Gladstone with their child's schooling at 67.8% compared to Queensland at 72.4%. And less children are regularly read to at home with 62.4%, with Queensland at 68.7%. More children are transitioning into school well, however, with 73.7% compared to Queensland's 72.5%. This slide shows us at a glance how our local government area data compares to both Queensland and Australia. So you'll see a red spot where children in our LGA are more vulnerable and a green spot where they are less vulnerable. As you can see, children in Gladstone local government area are more vulnerable than both the state and the nation across 4 of the 5 domains, being physical health and wellbeing, social competence, emotional maturity, and language and cognitive skills. On the communication skills and general knowledge, however, we have a higher percentage of children in Gladstone local government area that are developmentally on track, higher than the state or the nation, and this represents a great strength to build on moving forward. The summary indicators, which include the percentage of children that are developmentally vulnerable on 1 or more domains, reflect the greater developmental vulnerability locally than when we compare to the state and the nation. On this slide, we can see the percentage of developmentally vulnerable children across each of the 5 domains across all 5 data collections. In particular, I draw your attention to the language and cognitive skills domain, which reflects an increase in developmental vulnerability across the 2 previous collections. And the language and cognitive skills domain particularly is looking at things like literacy and numeracy skills. So conversely, you can see that we're performing quite well on the communication skills and general knowledge domain. When we look at the most recent data collection for 2021, we can see that most developmentally on track was physical health and wellbeing domain. So that reflects things not just like your gross and fine motor skills, but it also includes things like, are children dressed appropriately for the day? Have they got the right food to get them through the day? Have they slept the night before? So that domain is actually quite broad. That's also the domain that we have the least developmentally children at risk. And then for the least developmentally vulnerable children on any domain is communication skills and general knowledge. Conversely, if we look at the most developmental vulnerability, we see that language and cognitive skills coming up again. The most developmentally at risk is the social competence domain, and the most developmentally vulnerable, interestingly, is the physical health and wellbeing domain. This slide shows us the gap between developmentally vulnerable Indigenous children and non-Indigenous children in Gladstone by domain. So you can quite clearly see the Indigenous children represented on the hollow circle, and then the non-Indigenous children on the solid circle for each domain, and you can see the gap between the two, a significant gap across all 5 domains. So the Queensland Government does aim to reduce the percentage of Queensland children that are developmentally vulnerable on 1 or more domain to 22% by 2025, and that would align us with the national average. As you can see, however, on the red dashed line, after an initial drop in vulnerability in 2012, which corresponded with the introduction of universal access to kindy in Queensland, the percentage of children in the Gladstone local government area that are developmentally vulnerable on 1 or more domains has increased each of the last 4 collections and currently sits at 26.2%, meaning that more than 1 in 4 local children are developmentally vulnerable when they start school. So it's not all doom and gloom. We can work together to reduce vulnerability. The Gladstone Response to Outcomes for Wellbeing, or GROW, is one example of how we can do that. And we have a wide variety of stakeholders, including schools, early childhood education and care centres, GRT, and strong communities, to name a few. And we work together with the goal of increasing the percentage of Gladstone children developmentally on track. So GROW is a local incarnation of the Department of Education Connect for Children strategy. So in reflection, I would like to leave you with a few questions. Does the data fit with your understanding of the Gladstone community? Do you have any ideas on how to support early childhood development in the future? And how can we partner with families to support children? There are some wonderful resources on the AEDC website. The AEDC data does inform a huge amount of policy and funding right across the nation. And there are many, many more resources there as well. I do recommend that you check it out. And of course, as Nadia said, please welcome us back at any time if you'd like further information. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Did you want to take any questions, or was there any questions, councillors?
Just one comment regarding literacy and numeracy. We had a great program here in Gladstone, and it was canned by, I think, lack of funding from Queensland Education. And I think that's something that we could be advocating for to get back into the place, into Gladstone, because it did a great job. So.
And do you happen to recall the name or when? But I can find.
I'll need help with that one.
Yeah, it started out as the Exodus Tutorial Centre.
Okay.
And then when it moved over from the Mission to Seafarers, went over to Tallulah State. The South, was it? Yeah. Yeah, it became Gladstone Learning Centre or something like that.
Mind you, that's a little bit older than the age group you're talking about here. But
yeah.
I'll look into that though.
But it was designed specifically for kids that have just fallen through the cracks and weren't being picked up. So they were taken out of their school environment and had intensive literacy training.
Right,
brilliant. Yeah, it's a shame that it was canned.
Well, I would be interested myself to look into that further. Thank you.
Councillor Muscat, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask you, the data is very interesting. Thank you. And there is obviously some things to be very mindful about and worry. Some things we already know, but I wanted to have an idea of if you had information about how the townships represent some of this data, because I'm assuming probably people in Tannum Sands have different set of data than people maybe in the Boyne Valley or Calliope or and just because sometimes there's that will be useful for us to understand as to, you know, if we were to put any more resources here and there, in what areas should we concentrate?
That's a great question. Thank you, Natalia. So yes, this data that we've presented today is for the entire Gladstone LGA, but you can break it down further, and that's all available on that on the AEDC website, the Data Explorer. You can go down into the community level data, so that includes Gladstone, and that separates that from the Tannum and Calliope and the Boyne Valley, which are collated together. Or you can also go right down when you look in the back of the data profiles to suburb level as well. And it's based on where the children live, not where they're enrolled at school. And how that data is collected is by prep teachers. They are wonderful, and I don't know how they do it. So they have approximately 100 questions, so 20 for each domain. For every child, they're given 20 minutes to complete that. And of course, that doesn't include demographic information. So they have to be very prepared going into that data collection period. And that's nationwide that we do that. 65,000 children across the state.
Thank you. No, that's very helpful, because also I'm not sure if Kylie, our general manager, is present, but we're also working on a profiling the regions, and this will be very helpful, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just get a motion. Can I get a mover that we accept the deputation, please? Move Councillor Cameron, second Councillor Branthwaite. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you very much. We'll move now to item number G/4.1, Phillip Street Communities and Family Precinct Advisory Committee Seniors Representative Appointment, and hand over to the General Manager for Community Development and Events, Kylie Lee. Thanks, Kylie.
Lucky you haven't got your microphone on.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you very much. This morning, I'm very proud to present a recommendation from our Phillip Street Advisory Committee to accept a nomination by former councillor Maxine Bruce and community advocate to represent the seniors community on our Phillip Street Advisory Committee. Maxine has been an invaluable member of our working group over the past 3 years for Phillip Street, and also a long-term advocate of the project. She brings a wealth of information from a community perspective, and will be the conduit for the seniors community into the advisory committee, which will then support the operations in the strategic intent of the precinct. As per our terms of reference, I do seek council's endorsement for this particular placement.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors?
Happy to move.
Moved Councillor Churchill. Seconding Councillor
Can I make
Branthwaite.
a small comment? Sorry.
Councillor Muscat.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a small comment if I could. It's been a bit of a long, we had to put a fair bit of resources and people looking for filling these places in our advisory committee. So I just wanted to thank Kylie and Emily and her team for persevering and then obviously being successful. So it is noted, and yeah, we sometimes do struggle to find people that want to come into some of these committees, and this is a great outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a mover in Councillor Churchill, seconding Councillor Branthwaite. No further questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? We'll declare it carried. Thank you. We move now to item number G/4.2, potential disposal of reserve described as lot 904 on SP 112420, an adjacent road, and hand over to Mark Francis, the General Manager for Strategic Asset Performance. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. As its title suggests, we're asking you to consider the disposal of a reserve at the request of an adjoining landowner. The provision for me, or the delegation for me to, I'll get this right, is to object, but not to consent. So that's why we're here with this request to you. I'm joined here by Peter Watling, who's our strategic property specialist. This is the first of a number of leasing matters or land matters coming to you, which reflects the renewed engagement that we're having with our community and stakeholders. So we're pleased to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark and Peter. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Branthwaite.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Just with relation, I don't have a problem with this. There's obviously a market value for this?
No, excuse me. Morning, councillors. The situation is we're not selling the land. Department of Resources would be selling the land.
Oh, right.
Our role in this process is to indicate to Department of Resources whether we object or not object to the proposed purchase by a private property owner.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Hanson.
I'm happy to move the recommendation. It's a good report. Everything, all the information's there. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to move in Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Cameron.
I just wanted to ask a question. Sorry.
Yep, over to you, Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. I just They're just two quick questions. Actually, one question and one suggestion. I couldn't find anywhere here any mention as to speaking to the lot next door, or maybe I missed it. Could you help me with that, Peter, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, councillors, this isn't a case of council selling the land. The process will be for Department of Resources to go through that process. We're notifying or requesting interest from adjoining property owners.
Okay, no, I understand that. Thank you. I just I recall a couple of other situations in which maybe the department didn't do these. Would it be appropriate to maybe just remind them that consultation it's desirable? I know we can't tell them what to do, but
It is in the officer's recommendation, Councillor Muscat.
yeah.
The permanent road closure is subject to consultation with adjoining landowners and impacted road users.
Yeah, okay, well, that's wonderful. Okay, and the suggestion that I had, and this is for similar reports too, would it be possible to maybe add a link to maps or something to just make sure people know exactly where these areas are? Sometimes it's hard to, especially when we identify things by lots, or would that be appropriate to add to a report in the future?
You mean where it is in the region as opposed to the more detailed maps we've included?
Yeah, like Google Maps, or even, I don't know if we have our geo system.
The address is on the report. Councillor Muscat, are you...
Yeah, but a link so
for
people
something
can
more?
see, I guess. Well, I want to check it myself, but sometimes this is very clear as to where it is, but sometimes it's not so clear for people that might be just reading. And
Sure, we're happy to continuously improve the report, so we'll look into doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Muscat. And just to confirm, the officer's recommendation around being subject to the amalgamation of the two lots into one and also the consultation, is that more of a recommendation that we would give then to the department, that we would offer no objection on that basis? Is that it's still then up to the department as to what they choose to do and how they choose to proceed? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yep.
Thank you. That clarifies that. So, sorry, did I have a mover?
Yeah.
I had a mover in Councillor Hanson, seconding Councillor Cameron. Any further questions, councillors? No? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare it carried. Thank you. We move now on to item number G/4.3, lease to Gladstone Area Water Board, saltwater intake. And back to you, General Manager for Strategic Asset Performance, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you. This report is asking you to resolve that Section 236 applies of the local government regulation in relation to the proposed lease. That is that we're able to dispose of a freehold block of land to a government agency. This is the saltwater intake for Gladstone Area Water Board's hatchery, which is, as we've mentioned, of value certainly to the community and the environmental values there as well. Again, happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Self-explanatory. Moved, Councillor Branthwaite. Seconded, Councillor Churchill. No further questions. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. Item number G/4.4, lease Boyne Tannum Sharks Football Club. And back to you, Mark and Peter.
Thank you. Again, this is a request.
Sorry, we do. Oh, no, yeah, that's the next one. Sorry, back to you.
This is again asking you to consider that Section 236 applies to the proposed leased portion of Boyne Island Town Sands Football Club's lease area. This is a request for them to sort of regularise, if that's a word, their lease area, which is giving them more control over the lease area and some of the amenities within it, and allows them to sort of meet their strategic objectives. Section 236 here applies to the proposed lease, or we're suggesting it does, on the basis of the local government regulation. Again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Muscat.
Well, it's not really a question, but it's very nice to see the clubs working together to have this happening. So congratulations to them and to Peter and the team for this outcome. I'm happy to support it and move it if there's no one else that moved it.
Moved Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Hanson. Any further questions, councillors? I couldn't see it noted anywhere around the term of the lease, so...
10 years.
10 years.
It is noted.
Sorry.
Option 1.
Sorry, I could see it noted as 10 years. I couldn't see anywhere noted around a request for a longer period of time, so that...
They believe 10 years is
sufficient. Okay, thank you. That was my question. So we got a mover in Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Hanson. No further questions. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. We move now on to item number G/4.5, lease renewal for the Boyne Town and Bowls Club. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you. We're asking you here to consider an out-of-policy request for the lease renewal for the Bowls Club. As you'll be well aware, our community leasing policy limits us to 10 years. We have had a request from the club to consider a 30-year lease. We're not able to recommend that to you. Hence, our recommendation is for the 10 years. As we've laid out there, if you were of a mind to provide a 30-year lease, then we would require reasons for that. We have included information in the report which we believe would support that resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Branthwaite.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just with the requests, the likes of the 30-year request, in the past, there's been not necessarily a precedent set, but obviously changes have been made for certain clubs. But they would be hovering around major infrastructure builds and whatnot. Is that correct? The reason why we've extended to 30 years?
We would bring any request that's out of policy to the boardroom for you to consider. Certainly when we've been asked to bring it is because people are planning to make improvements and are looking to get some security of tenure. And they feel more secure having that longer term lease.
So there hasn't been anything sort of forthcoming with that?
For the Bowls Club?
Yeah.
I think the Bowls Club have a strategic plan. Peter, you can maybe talk more about your engagement with them.
Yeah, we met with the club councillors and they haven't got definite proposals, but they've certainly got a business plan to take the club forward, particularly with a longer period of tenure. They can invest further into the facility and expand, develop further greens, etc. And that's one of the reasons they're looking for the longer term lease.
Is there an opportunity for the club down the track, once they have put their full business case forward, to have an extension, apply for extension of the lease? Past 10 years? So an alteration or extension of that prior to the lease coming to fruition?
Yeah. Look, any lease is subject to negotiation for variation, and that's something we could bring back to council at the time. Council has an option to approve a 10-year lease renewal today, or something outside of policy for a longer term. But yes, we could revisit that matter
down the track.
future years.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor O'Grady.
Just wondering, with their funding opportunities and whatever else, whether that would affect them. It was 10 years, not a longer lease. So I just don't know. It all depends, I suppose, which funding opportunities they go for. But 10 years would get them over the line for most funding opportunities, do you think?
Yeah, when we discussed this in the past, the security of tenure is the fact they have a lease with council. The term of that lease, as Peter said, is subject to negotiation. Leases are generally renewed, but we're not looking to dispose of this property, so the security of tenure is there irrespective really of the term of the lease. The term of the lease just provides an opportunity for that renegotiation and a re-engagement.
Thank you.
The club does have some anxieties around tenure for, I think, what are valid reasons, due to the fact that I think it was around 2010 or 12, which was before my time, there was the potential purchase of that land from a developer at the time. It might have been before that, and the club was subject to looking at the possibility of losing that land. And so there's many members of the club that remember that, and that's hot on their minds, and so I think that's a legitimate reason. Now, it's not the intention of this council, as I'm aware, to ever, enable that to happen. But that can be subject to change. And I think, personally, we have talked about this policy. Unfortunately, we haven't resolved it, but we have a number of other organisations that have been granted a 30-year lease, and they were under the same conditions that the Boyne Island Bowls Club has made this request, and they were granted. And so I personally can't see any reason why we can't grant a 30-year lease to this particular club, given that we have done so for others, and also given that they want to see this security of tenure, I guess, to put their minds at ease so they can invest in the long-term sustainability of this club. And they do a good job. I think they've grown their membership. My understanding is they're the largest bowls club via members in the region. They've got no debt. They've got money to be able to invest into this club. So I think it's, whilst it's outside of policy, given the fact that we haven't resolved that policy yet, other than what it currently is, I'm supportive of granting the club the 30-year lease option.
I'm happy to move option number 2. Councillor Goodluck.
Move, Councillor Churchill.
Just got.
And I'm happy to move it on the basis that as you indicated and others have indicated, that we review that policy. And the other part of it is that they have stood the test of time, and in their request, they are indicating that they have substantial development business plans for the future. So their sustainability will be based upon that longer term lease. And I've expressed my opinion previously on this, as others have as well.
Thanks, Councillor Churchill. We've got a mover in Councillor Churchill and a seconder in Councillor Hanson.
No, you haven't. I was just going to. I haven't seconded it yet. I just wanted to make a comment, please.
Righto, can I get a seconder Councillor Branthwaite? Can I just confirm before I go to you, Councillor Hanson, Councillor Churchill, you're moving option 2 with any particular reasons? There are some noted in option 2 in report, Councillor Churchill. Did you want to use all of them or a particular one?
No, I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy with the ones that have been listed by the officer, and I think the officer has done a marvellous job. Our responsibility as elected members is to go back and review that policy, because we've already established a precedent on a number of others within the region, and I think this is visionary.
Very visionary, Councillor Churchill. Move, Councillor Churchill. Seconding, Councillor Branthwaite. We've got the options noted in option 2 there from the officers, which I think gives a good representation. Councillor Hanson, did you have a further comment?
Yeah, I agree that the precedent has been set through previous leases, and I'm not sure how many there is. There's only 1 or 2, I think, that we've granted 30-year leases to. I'm happy to go along with this, but it also sets a precedent. I hope you realise it sets a precedent for when we look at the policy again, that this longer term could prevail.
I think the horse has bolted, Councillor Hanson,
bolted, all
due
right.
to decisions that we've already made.
I think we can have that debate when that policy
pun,
comes
wasn't it? That was
before
a
us,
good- I didn't
because
even
I've expressed
realise.
my opinion previously.
If
You
we
know,
agree
some
on
of the-
Yeah, we all have.
If we agree on this today, though, the horse has bolted, and you've agreed that the policy probably needs to be looked at.
You're trying to use a Melbourne Cup connotation with the horse bolting it.
I did, Councillor Churchill. At the end of the day, we do have a current policy in place, and organisations are entitled to make out-of-policy requests, which this is one, and as have the other decisions been related to those out-of-policy requests as well.
I'm sure many other organisations will be looking at this decision made today and the policy moving forward. Mr. Acting Mayor.
The Mayor is the Mayor. I'm just the Chair today. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, my apology.
And
Sorry,
you're doing
Tanya.
a great job, Mr. Chair. But this also might resolve the issue
I have my hand up.
Sorry, Councillor Muscat.
Coming to you, Councillor Muscat, yep. Sorry, Tanya, can you...
Sorry, councillors, I just wanted to provide you an update on that policy. We have a little bit more internal stakeholder feedback to do, and I expect that it'll come back to you before the end of the year.
Fantastic, thank you, Tanya. Councillor Muscat, did you want to have a question? Sorry?
Yes, I'm having difficulties with, I guess, supporting this. We do have a policy. We have made other policy decisions, which they normally have to be for something that is extraordinary or something that is above or something that doesn't fit within the policy. In this case, I'm sorry, but there is no indication that we want to use this land for anything else. Everyone else gets a 10-year lease. That's the policy that we set. We have discussed this policy not long ago, and we did not have a consensus. So to me, I 100% appreciate and support the club, but this isn't to me representation of fairness and consistency around the region and for the clubs and all other clubs, and we haven't actually reviewed the policy. So we haven't agreed, have not come to an agreement. So to me, I'm sitting here thinking, what do we even have a policy about this? So to me, the recommendation, the officer's recommendation, I understand is done by the policy, but there's nothing really that seems wrong to me. And the reasons why someone might want a longer lease, they're still applicable to the 10-year lease. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to agree with the option 2.
That's fair enough, Councillor Muscat. I can appreciate the comments you make about consistency, and I understand that, but the issue that I have when I'm making this decision is exactly around consistency, and that's that we've got the Gladstone Bowls Club, the Bourne Island Golf Club and the PCYC, which we have granted out-of-policy concessions for the 30 years. Now, each of those organisations had their own reasons for making those requests, and they were granted, and none of the reasons really were to any great extent outside of the reasons that the Bourne Island Golf Club has made. They're very similar, and so for me, in the interest of consistency and in the absence of the fact that we have a consensus on a new policy, I have to be, my version of consistency is granting this request to the Bourne Island Golf Club, but I can, Bowls Club, sorry, but I can appreciate that there's perhaps different perspectives there. Is there any...
Yeah, there's a policy that has a reasoning behind it. So I'm respecting that policy and at the same time supporting the club, because I will be more extremely happy to, after 10 years, make sure that this continues. And even if it's something that can be added to the lease that says that, you know, there's open to a continuation of the lease. But I'm basing my decision on the fact that we had set a policy for a reason, and the inconsistency disrespects the policy. And I know the precedent's been set before, and I don't think that's right either. But yeah, at the moment, I feel like we are now being pushed to then change the policy in a way that we haven't actually discussed or agreed on.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillor Cameron?
Just to point out that the clubs that have asked for a 30-year lease and been granted have been in their leasehold for 30 years or better. If it was a club that was just newly established, I would be very reluctant to grant 30 years. But with the likes of the clubs that we have given those extensions to on the lease, they have been there for 30 years or greater.
Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Khan. And just, I'm pleased you raised that, Councillor Cameron, because when we talk about the policy, and we'll get to the policy review, that has been, in my opinion, a bit of an anomaly that sits in there at the moment, because those organisations that have stood the test of time for a long period of time need to be rewarded, not punished. Yes, and the other part of the policy, and we'll get to that review, is that if it is a new organisation, then perhaps they could be given that 10 years, and that can be part of the policy review discussion without leading that as an outcome. That's why I'm supportive of the longer term period to reward those that have been in our community and doing great things and have stood the test of time.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to jump in there, but this isn't about rewarding or punishing anybody. This is about respecting the policy and understanding why somebody can do it or somebody can't. So, again, I know this is what we do in debating, but I just don't like these emotional things. I'm not against the club. I think they're
This
wonderful.
is not emotional, Councillor Muscat. This is not emotional. It's not an emotional issue. I bring to everybody's attention that over the past number of years, there have been leases that have been expired for long periods of time, and our community volunteer organisations are put into a state where they're not exactly sure whether they have future occupancy, future viability if they don't have a current lease. In actual fact, I go the opposite way, and I've expressed my opinion previously, is that if they're doing exceptionally well, then perhaps they could have a 99-year lease and they can be reviewed on a 5 or a 10-year basis. But that's a policy review, debate and discussion that we can have at a later time. And I do appreciate your opinions on that. Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I think the Boyne Tanham Bowls Club started up in 1983 or 1984, so been around for some decades. But do we have any further comments or questions to the officers before I put the motion? No. So I think we had a mover in Councillor Churchill, was it, and a seconder in Councillor Braithwaite, was that right? Yep. For option 2, as noted on the screen, with the reasons in the report surrounding option 2 there, Councillor Churchill, that's correct?
Yep, that's correct.
I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Thank you. We'll move on now. Sorry, we'll get Councillor Trevor back in the room. Thank you. We've got an interesting one here. Item number G/4.6, expression of interest for an e-scooter scheme trial, and I'll hand over to the General Manager for Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. This item this morning is around looking at using our procurement methodology of expression of interest for the entering into e-scooter trials across the region. So we use expression of interest where we know what we roughly want to achieve, but we're not exactly sure how we're going to get there. So what we've got here is basically a number of e-scooter companies have approached council. We've also know that there's a number of local governments that are utilising e-scooters across their regions. So in order to essentially look at how e-scooters might be utilised across the region, we're looking at utilising an expression of interest to go out to the market and essentially just see what interest we do receive, and then assess those expressions of interest, and then work through a trial period. Happy to hand over to either Kylie from a visitor accommodation perspective or Christy from a procurement perspective to answer any questions you may have.
Councillors, if I can just add, we've had a lot of consultation with Gladstone Area Promotion Development Limited regarding the e-scooter trials, and also support from Discovery Coast Tourism and Commerce. This is something that's very effective as a mode of transport in connecting areas such as 1770 and Agnes Water, Tannum Sands and the Gladstone Marina. I invite any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson, you'll be the first one to jump on a scooter.
Oh,
Is that?
I'm happy to move. I'm happy to move.
My question is can I ask the question?
Over to you, Councillor Hanson.
Mr. Chair?
You certainly can.
Did I address you correctly that time?
That's
perfect,
thank you.
The expression of interest, once we've put out the expression of interest, does that tie us down to actually using the scheme, or does it come back here for another? Because personally I wouldn't be in favour of it, but I'm happy to go to an expression of interest, and then will it come back here then after that?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Hanson. We basically run the expression of interest, assess the submissions, and then we decide what our next step is from there. We may seek tenders from the selected expression of interest submissions, or we may choose not to do anything further with it. So it really is depending on what we receive. Yep.
So when you say we, is it the internal organisation, or does it come back to a boardroom?
Generally, if the value exceeds CEO financial delegation, it would come back to council. I think probably a discussion with Kylie's team and council may be warranted if there's an interest to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor O'Grady, before we go to Councillor Muscat and then Councillor Churchill.
Sorry, I was happy to move.
Oh, you're happy to move? Got a mover for the officer's recommendation. And Councillor O'Grady, do I have a seconder? Second, and Councillor Muscat. Question, Councillor Muscat?
Yeah, thank you. It was, well, not a question, but I do think it's, yeah, a little, I 100% support these, but it is very valid what Councillor Hanson just said, and if we can have a little bit of an understanding of, you know, the process after, I just wouldn't want this to start happening without us giving everybody an opportunity to discuss it, because we might not all be in agreement. Now, I wanted to thank the team also for bringing this. We have spoken about this and coming up with different solutions as in relation to traffic management, or you know, the need of maybe big car parks in different places, or how we move around some of our areas, and especially townships and more tourist areas. So thank you for doing that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to work.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillor Churchill, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Councillor Khan. I think Councillor Muscat raises some very valid points. No, I'm supportive of the recommendation. I'd like to just ask a couple of quick questions. One is, can I get an understanding in this EOI process, and that's probably where Councillor Muscat was making reference, in relation to the anti-competitive aspect, or who is a determination on how many operators we can actually have from a commercial operator's perspective. And the other part is that I'd also like to think that part of this EIO process that we could learn from the success and failures, because even in today's media and the media yesterday and the day before, there's been a few fatalities as a result of these e-scooters. And yes, there's probably various reasons for it, but I think some local governments, in my opinion, personal and professional, have done it extremely well, and some local governments, unfortunately, it hasn't worked all that well for them.
Councillor,
so my question, yep.
Sorry.
Can anybody help me?
I can try to answer that, Councillor Churchill.
Thank you.
The expression of interest would deliver options for council to consider. It would be ideal to potentially engage one scooter hire company for consistency across the region. The councils have done it in several different ways. Some councils have sought trials and then sought community feedback following a period of time, and other councils have simply implemented the scooters as a mode of transport. I'm happy to bring the EOI recommendation back to councillors to talk through that process, either in an information session, and I'm also happy to seek community feedback prior to implementing any scooter scheme. I noticed today the Queensland Government have also implemented new rules for scooters and the way we utilise scooters in our transport network. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you for that, because what it does bring about, from my understanding, and it's good to see the Queensland Government's finally done that, is that it does bring about another issue when we talk about engineering, road developments, signage, and we've got a cycle and pathway strategy, and how does that we've been implementing, including some of the missing links, how does that relate to the areas of use for e-scooters? So I think there's a little bit more to be done than just simply inviting an expression of interest from a local government perspective, our local government.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thanks. I'd like to point out also that between the council and the Port Authority, have spent a small fortune putting walking tracks in under their health and wellbeing programs, and now we want to put them on scooters. That sort of doesn't align to me. I can see this has a great value in the areas like Agnes Water 1770, where you've got a lot of little beaches and long walks between them. I can see great value there, but I would not be happy to see e-scooters in East Shores, Spinnaker Park and the Marina Precinct. I can't see that as working. I know it's a great thing for tourism, but tourism as averse to public safety would be an issue for me. I see it here, it's the e-scooter scheme trial, it says. I would be happy to see it as a trial, but I think it's the community who should make the decision as to whether they want them and where they want them.
I think the e-scooter companies can put locks on whereabouts they can go. So I know from experience from riding one in other areas that if you go into the place where they're not allowed, they just turn off, and so you can't ride them anymore. So that would be a question for the Gladstone Ports Corporation. If they didn't want e-scooters in that area, which is quite possible for the reasons that you've just mentioned, they may say, no, we're not going to have e-scooters there, and the companies that we deal with, I'm assuming, could just lock them off on the map. So if any scooter goes into that area, it just turns off, and you can't ride them once they turn off. You've got to jump off and walk again. So Councillor Branthwaite, did you have a question?
I actually was going to say exactly. Sorry. I was going to say exactly the same thing as you said, Councillor Khan. Thank you.
Councillor Grady, sorry.
And I've used them too, and that's true.
Yeah. So those pathways, I think they're for everybody to use, as in cyclists as well, because they're not just restricted for walkers. So and they do connect to our pathways as well for cycling. So Anyway, it's something that the Port Authority would have to make a decision on. So, and I think with the rules coming out today, with these new rules, like the companies that actually have e-scooters actually have restrictors on them, so they can't go any faster than 25 kilometres unless you're going down a really steep hill. I think the biggest issue that we've probably got with scooters is when people privately buy one from somewhere, whether it's online or whatever else, some of them do not have a restrictor in them. So, and this is where this has come about. So it's not so much the hire scooters, the issue with the speeding and whatever else, it's the people that personally own one. I just wanted to point that out. I'm happy to move it.
Moved, Councillor Grady. Can I get a second? Councillor, did you want to? Can I get a seconder first? You want a second, Councillor Trevor?
I think I was already seconded.
Sorry, Councillor Natalia
earlier.
is seconded.
Sorry.
Righto. We'll go to Councillor Trevor. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Kylie, I haven't researched this matter in any great detail, but I've observed over the years the number of horrific accidents and even death of individuals that have been riding these scooters or been victims by being run over by them. My principal concern in relation to introducing them into our region would be one of public liability and whether in fact the owner of the scooters indemnify the drivers of the scooters, whether they are in breach of the law or not. In that, I see a classic example of the scooter owner affording public liability, but then a driver driving the vehicle drunk, and then the public liability insurer refusing to indemnify, and the drunken person having no money, having hit and significantly injured someone. That significantly injured person would receive no compensation whatsoever and would be potentially disabled for life in our region because a drunk person got on an e-scooter that wasn't indemnified under public liability because of that very fact. Those are the issues that I would be worried about so far as introduction into our region. The other issue is a sightly one. Not that I'm terribly concerned about it, but you only have to travel to Bundaberg and see the messy situation that's created down there by e-scooters being left on every street corner. Potentially a trip hazard for the elderly who use those areas to shop and to walk and to carry out their daily activities. So I think in any expression of interest we should remain very vigilant of what the owners of the vehicles propose to do in relation to cleaning up their mess, where the scooters are left willy-nilly all over the place, and I'd be more concerned to hearken to the evidence and make sure that our residents are protected no matter what eventuality arises from a public liability point of view.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. That's definitely, we should be looking at that in the assessment process when we're looking at the expressions of interest. I do know as a driver you do tick off a section when you hire a scooter to state that you aren't intoxicated. However, we do know that sometimes some people don't abide by those conditions. We will definitely look at both of those options within the assessment process, Councillor Trevor, and we'll bring back the assessment to a councillor information session.
They do have specific areas also that these companies will map out as parking areas for the e-scooters, and obviously not everyone puts them where they're supposed to, but there's, as I understand, there's people that go around and collect them and recharge the batteries and take them back to where they're supposed to be. I think, that we've got them in Rockhampton, we've got them in Bundaberg, and I think the valid issues that Councillor Trevor just raised are a concern, and we need to look at how we can, hopefully manage that. But the reality is we've got e-scooters in our community already. I had a friend of mine turn up to my house on his e-scooter on Sunday that he just purchased and is riding around the streets. And there's many others out there. So I think we've got e-scooters in the community already. There is issues I know that state governments and others are working on around liability issues, all those valid concerns. So I think we should give people the option to have e-scooters in our community as well. I think that I support the motion for a trial, see what evidence and what some of these issues come back that we can look at and how we might be able to help manage that. Councillor Muscat, did you have a question? Yep. We can't hear you. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry. Yep. Just unmute me. Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Actually was going to make a similar comment to yours. Yes, these aren't not new devices. While, it is valid, there's going to be, I guess, questions of liability. There already is out there. There are questions of liability. We have not just scooters, we got skates, skateboards, we got, old push bikes. There's a lot of different things, and the issues will always be the same. So the other thing that these operators have is we will be able to decide what areas these scooters will go in. As we discussed earlier, they will stop working once you go into a non-permitted area. So we have that. To me, that's the power to decide where we think this would be less risky and more convenient. It is not just for tourists. I'm sure my children will use them, and I will use them. So especially in places like Agnes, I think it's a great idea. And as we just said, we can only trial it, and then the more information we have and the more evidence that we gather, it will help us to make the best informed decision. So I think doing this as a trial is a great approach. Thank you.
Did we have any further questions, councillors? No? All right, we've got a mover for the officer's recommendation for Councillor O'Grady and second Councillor Muscat. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. We move now to item number G/4.7, temporary change to waste fees and charges for mulch, and hand back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. This item is to consider essentially the waiving of fees for a period of 2 months with respect to our mulch at the Gladstone transfer station. So this is continuing a scheme that we've had for the last two years. It certainly was implemented following essentially where we had a high risk incident at our landfill where we had these mulch piles could catch fire. So this is actually a good risk mitigation technique. And underneath our fees and charges, we're just required to bring this resolution for you for consideration to essentially look at waiving these fees for a 2-month period.
Councillor Hanson.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Moved, Councillor Hanson. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Muscat.
Just while you're seconding that resolution, I just note that there is a typographical error in the office's recommendation. It refers to November to December 2021. If we can just correct that to 2022.
Yep. We've got a mover and a seconder. Any further questions? Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. We move on to item number G/4.8, Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting minutes. Back to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Council, these are your committee minutes from the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee from the 21st of September 22. The report highlights a number of items that were considered at that meeting. Principally, principally the meeting was in and around reviewing the financial statements processes as well, which have been subsequently concluded through the audit with Queensland Audit Office only as of last Friday. But happy to answer questions with respect to the report, if you have any.
No questions, councillors. Can we get a mover? Move Councillor Churchill, seconded Councillor Cameron. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Sorry, Councillor Trevor. Sorry. We'll move now on to councillor reports. Is there any councillor reports? We have none. No, we'll move on to urgent business. There's no urgent business. We don't have any notice of motions. We do have one confidential item, which we'll need to close the meeting. I'll get a mover in a second, but in accordance with the Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 254J, it is proposed to close the meeting to discuss one confidential item. Gladstone Recycled Water will be closed under Section 254J, negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government, as this item will discuss contract negotiations. Can I get a mover that we close the meeting? Councillor Trevor. Seconded Councillor Muscat. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Welcome back. We're now on item G/8, the confidential item, G/8.1, Gladstone recycled water. Can I please get a mover for a motion? Moved Councillor Trevor, seconded Councillor Churchill. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. And before I close the meeting, I would like to say on behalf of Mayor Matt Burnett and the entire team at the Gladstone Regional Council, and on behalf of our community, a very warm welcome back to Councillor Chris Trevor, mate, and it's great to see you looking reasonably well. So he's looking good.
Extremely well.
He's punching.
It's a wrap.
Thank you all, and we'll declare the meeting closed.
Love heart thing on my team's screen.
I would go so far as to say you've got a beautiful smile,
I would have loved
Councillor
to
Trevor.
see you, Chris. I'm glad you're back. Welcome.
Thank you all. We'll declare the meeting closed at 18 minutes past 10. Thank you.